Hi. First of all, any injuries or illnesses ahead of the game against Fulham?
No, no, we're all good. Golo Kante suspended, but he's back in training with us from tomorrow, so we're all good.
Good to hear. Interested to hear about your memories of this Fulham Chelsea victory because, you know, as derbies go, it's not the most ferocious in the Premier League, but still an exciting fixture, isn't it?
Yeah, it is an exciting fixture, and I always felt it had an extra edge to it, as I think the squad that I played in did. A different relationship to some derbies. Fulham at that time was sometimes in the Premier League, sometimes not. But whenever they came, they really had a feeling of wanting to beat us and get one up on us. So yeah, without fans, obviously takes a slight edge off these things. But mentally, I think as players and as a club, we should certainly retain that passion of what this game means.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching. How have the players been? Have you noticed a change in them after that win against Morecambe? Because, of course, you hadn't won a match for 3 games before that.
Yeah, I think they've been focused since Manchester City. I think Morecambe came in the middle of that. It was a game that we were expected to win and had to win on paper, and we did it comfortably. But more my concern has been training and an atmosphere around that, because when you've had a few games where you don't win, it's clear that the players need to stay positive, and that starts from the staff. So I've seen good reactions in those terms. The players have worked hard. We've had 2 pretty long weeks, which is the first time this season where we've had a chance to work in training on bigger elements of our game. So that's been one positive out of the last 2 weeks, and now the players need to show that.
And finally, for me, you, Frank, how are you dealing with it all? So many reports, your name's all over the media, but how are you feeling?
I'm feeling fine. I was very aware when I came into this job, and I think if you manage a top club in the Premier League or in the world, which Chelsea is, you have to understand that pressure will come very quickly at times, and pressure is actually constantly there anyway. I always felt pressure in our good run, or last season when expectations were lower for us, and we what I felt achieved very well. So it's very normal. I've been here as a player for a long time, so it's part of my job. It actually focuses my concentration completely on how to get us some results, because we know in the last few games it hasn't been good enough, and that's fine for me.
Thank you, Withers, PLP.
Thanks.
Hi Frank.
Hi.
You've got a really good record against Fulham, unbeaten in the league since 2006. Does that help mentally in any way, especially after that defeat to Manchester City?
No, and I hope that's not pessimistic. It's not. It's just a reality of football. Fulham are playing well. Fulham played very well last night against Tottenham, a game that they probably felt like they maybe could have won, but they played very well in the game, and that's been their recent form. So I think previous history before that goes away.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about their form actually, because obviously they had a poor start to the season, but Scott Parker's really made them hard to beat lately, taking points from Liverpool, Leicester, Southampton and Spurs. So how do you make sure that you don't make the same mistakes other teams have perhaps made against them?
Well, we just have to concentrate on ourselves being the best. When you say mistakes to other teams, I don't think it's necessarily mistakes. We must credit Scott and his team there, because they have, certainly with a change of system and how they've worked on it. You've seen a clear style of play. You've seen a clear way that they're not giving many chances to teams in games. They're very well organised, and they have threats throughout their team. So I don't think it's about mistakes. They've drawn with Liverpool recently. They've drawn with Tottenham last night. It's going to be a tough game no matter what, but we have to focus on ourselves.
Just finally, you said to Jess there that you've been given that little bit more time on the training pitch. What are you hoping to get out of your players on Saturday that this extra time has afforded you?
Well, we'll see, but I know one of the huge... I know the rules in football. No matter what squad you have, and particularly if you have young or new players into a squad, you need time to work. And I think one of the big, huge pluses when you reflect on last season was that we had that, and even with the young squad and some areas that were clearly imbalanced in the squad, we had long pre-season. We worked moments through the season where we could work, and I saw lots of great things. Earlier in the season, we had great things coming through. Then we've had a tough patch. So those 2 weeks have given us a chance just to refocus on the basics of our game and what we are and how we want to play. So I just want to see those things come through.
Great, good luck on Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Moose.
Hi Frank, how are you?
Hi, Moose. Good, thanks.
Good. Can I start by asking you, apparently there's going to be urgent meetings taking place between the Premier League captains and managers at some point today and tomorrow to discuss the COVID protocols and concerns around non-compliance. we all read about, which may trigger or may not trigger the government interference and maybe stopping football. Can I get your word on that and what players and managers need to do now to double down on these protocols?
Well, we need to do our best, as we should have done all along. The protocols are in place. They've been hardened recently, and I understand why, because of the surge of COVID in the public, which football remains part of. So I think there are meetings going on. There are areas in our workplace which compliance is, not say easy, but social distance is top of the list. All the basics are top of the list. But when you're actively playing football on the pitch and there's a lot of instinct involved, then it's not always as easy to draw a clear line on pitch and in training. So that's where we are. We'll try and do the best that we are told to keep to minimise the threat or the danger that we know this virus holds.
Would you and are you actively telling your players not to go and celebrate after goals, not to high-five players they would know on the other team at the end of games?
Yeah, and we've been told that. We're saying you're right, there are meetings that are planned for today and tomorrow to probably reinforce that, I guess, from the Premier League, and not reinforce that to the players. But football has and always will be a game of instinct. And if we want to take the instinct out of the game, I think it's not that simple. So I think the players are good lads. They don't want to do the wrong thing. They're being asked to do their job through this very tough time, and they're doing it. And that's the way it is, and I understand that. But when they're on the pitch and if they score a goal, we'll try and adapt slightly as well as we can. Ideally, in a perfect world, we'll all walk back to the halfway line and just start again. But with football, maybe it won't quite be the case. And I don't think you can hold players hugely to account unless there's clear flouting of those rules. But that's certainly not an easy line to draw in-game in football.
And finally, obviously up against Scott Parker, someone you know extremely well. And he's been well talked about as being a coach and a manager since he went to Spurs and took charge of a youth team. Now obviously come from Fulham. What did you see in him though when you were teammates that made you think, yeah, he's going to be a Premier League manager?
Diligent, good football brain, very determined, wants to do well in everything he does, prepares right. Everything as a player made me think that Scott could go on to coaching and management. It's always, the only doubt is always, do they want to? And he showed his idea, his hand very quickly when he got into his coaching badges and started his pathway with youth teams, etc. And I think he's done fantastically well and is doing fantastically well and will continue to do so.
Brilliant. Good luck, Frank.
Thank you.
John Southall, 5 Live.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, John.
Just on Scott Parker, can you understand his complaints from midweek, Scott Parker, that the game was, rearranged at such short notice? Or in the current climate, is that something that could happen to any club and you just got to take it on the chin and get on with it?
Well, yeah, I don't think Scott was saying that in the current climate it can't happen. I just think he was talking about how he was, how they were notified and when they were notified that the game was going ahead. Because we do as managers plan, every manager in this league plan for games, squad, games ahead. Because when you play every 2 or 3 or 4 days, you have to think about legs, and particularly, I guess, for Scott, if they've come through a time of isolations and positive tests through their squad, I'm sure it's been a tough time for him, so I would understand his frustrations.
Do you think as a squad you're in a better place than you were, say, 2 weeks ago? You've had 2 weeks without a midweek game, so you've had a couple of weeks of full-on training, I thought, haven't you?
Yeah, we've had good work. We've had good work on the training pitch. So I've just been saying that. So that's been a positive of the 2 weeks. It's our first 2 weeks that we've been able to work through the week at a really physical level, which is important if you want to improve as a team.
Just on, I know you've spoken about the new protocols, but I mean, if we're being realistic, how difficult is it to say to a player, if you score a goal, say in the 90th minute, you win a game, you can't celebrate? I mean, it's instinct, it's natural instinct, isn't it? And I suppose you've got to be careful that people aren't going to get booked for celebrating if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people can get booked, which means they could probably get sent off if it was a second yellow card, I think it's going to be very difficult to police with keeping the energy and the excitement that football brings. I think that's pretty clear. The players will try and let's see how it works. The players have been asked now to maybe not show natural instinct in the game. Let's see how it works.
ITV News.
Yes, hello, it's Juliet Bremner here from ITV News. Can I just ask you, Frank, you said that it's instinct to celebrate after you scored a goal, but many people might think this is arrogant because so many of us are having to do things that we wouldn't normally do. What do you feel about the fact that others feel that football players really should lead the way and show an example?
Yeah, I think, just to be clear on that, footballers are doing everything that everyone else is being asked to do as well. Some people are being asked to work from home, footballers aren't. So they're being taking themselves into an environment where they're potentially maybe putting themselves in danger, but maybe the family they go home to, a pregnant wife, a grandparent, a parent, a brother, a sister as well. So I think we have to understand that footballers are human as well, and they're being asked to go and do their job in this moment. So I think that's one thing. And I think if you understand football and understand the passion and the instinct which every fan has, every person in the street has for football, if they love football, they understand that it can bring out emotions in you. So to control the emotions, I think, is a fair ask, but to dictate emotions, I think, will probably be very difficult on pitch. I just said before, I think we should see how this goes, because I think as it goes along, we'll see if players can control it. I hope they can, but this game, this beautiful game that we all love, does bring emotions out on the pitch. But what I want to be really clear about is that players are being asked to come to work and are doing everything they can to toe the line, as is every, hopefully, person in the public to toe the line to get us through this.
Last two, Liam and then Nick Pure.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Liam.
I wanted to ask you about Timo Werner. What have you made of his performances through the middle versus when he's maybe starting from a wider position, and how does that change the way that your team's attack kind of operates?
Well, I think with Timo through the middle, it's clearly an area of the pitch that he likes to start from. I think in Leipzig and for Germany, he's played centrally. He's played on the left. He's played as a lone striker. He's played one of two strikers. So I see that there's definitely room for his manoeuvre in terms of how you can use Timo. I think when he plays centrally, we are, and I think and I certainly do as a manager, pride ourselves on being a good, hard-working team off the ball, which means sometimes a lot of high pressure. And I think it's very normal that for Timo and others that have come into this team in forward areas for us, will take some time to get used to what my idea is, what their teammates' idea is, because we haven't had working time on the pitch. There's no doubt about that. We've missed. That can only be done at full pace in training to really work on the high press. And that's why these 2 weeks have been useful. So I think his performances have been pretty good. I think they're going to get better. And I think as the more he works with his teammates, gets used to this Premier League, because I think it's going slightly unspoken about the fact that a lot of players that come into this league, at a club like Chelsea where there's a lot of competition for places, other players are given time to come in the team, come out of the team, feel the way. Players that have come into the Liverpool team over recent years been given time in those early stages to feel how the team plays. Clearly with Timo, we didn't have that opportunity because of some injuries in certain positions in our team, because we brought Timo and others to make an impact in our first team straight away. So everybody has to be patient with the idea that we will get the maximum, we will maximise Timo's talents in this team. And that's a two-way street of his work and our work as a group. And it will happen, but of course it can take time.
Last question in this section, Nick Pure.
Hi Frank. I know you said obviously Fikayo could potentially go out on loan. Does he have a long-term future at the club, and is Kurt Zouma a good example for him to follow on that, of someone who's gone out on a couple of loans and perhaps been rewarded for his patience and hard work? Yeah,
he absolutely has a long-term future at this club. We'll see if and when he goes on loan. But from the moment I've got close to Fikayo was when I took him to Derby with me, and he was Player of the Year at Derby and one of the best players in the Championship that year, in my opinion, and came back and played 20 plus games for us at a very young age last year and got in the England squad. There's an absolute long plan for Fikayo in my head about his career here, and if it's to go and play games, it will be to absolutely enhance his personal development, hopefully help whatever team he goes to, because that will come hand in hand and come back to us a better player.